Coming up next, an interview with one of my favorite bands ever. Not only were they one of the biggest bands of their time, their members were so prolific, they played on some of the biggest albums of all time. And here they tell the story of their peak in the early 80s with an album that won multiple Grammys. Yeah, when that meant something. And they ruled radio while influencing the biggest selling album ever. In fact, when the biggest star on the planet called to ask him to play on this album, today's guest hung up on him like several times because he thought it was a crank call. You're going to love these guys. It's coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies. Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if other passengers are always asking you, begging you to turn your music down when they're riding in your car, you're just like me. You're going to love this channel. Nostalgia all the time, the music. Subscribe below right now. Click the bell so that you never miss out. The story straight from the legends. Now, today we're going to start a brand new show on this channel, and I'm going to let you decide what we call it. I want you to let me know in the comments, and whichever has the most votes, we'll use it. Or if you have a better suggestion for the title, let me know in the comments. We'll pick the best one. This show is going to be about iconic artists' biggest albums, but with a curveball. We always talk about the hits on these big records, but what about the secondary singles, the secondary songs, the album tracks, the lesser-known songs that still make it a great album? I was thinking of calling it either the other ones or even secondary hits or the underdogs, but you tell me which one you like, or if you got a better one, we'll go with it. My first subject for this series is going to be Toto IV, one of my favorite albums ever. Got my copy from when I was a little kid right there. Everyone celebrates the two big hits from the record. I mean, deservedly so. Africa, which has now become one of the biggest songs of all time. It hit #1 at the time and was the biggest hit from the Grammy-winning record. Of course, the #2 scorcher, Rosanna, the song that was inspired by a certain Hollywood actress who was dating keyboardist Steve Porcaro. What about the secondary hits, the deeper cuts from this album? Huge album. After the first two singles, Rosanna and Africa, rocked radio, there were actually 3 more singles on this record, and a few other songs that could have been singles that made this an essential record of all time. Make Believe. It was a secondary single that notched a '30 position on the Billboard Hot 100 as well as #19 on the Cashbox charts. It's a catchy little number that, if you listen closely to the lyrics and the way that Bobby Kimball sings it, it's a pretty heart-wrenching breakup song dressed up in a happy sing-along ditty. And then there was the no doubt about it emotional top 10 fourth single, I Won't Hold You Back. Sung masterfully by Steve Lukather. It's one of their best songs. Great solo from him. As well as the last single, Waiting for Your Love. But beyond that, it's one of the best songs from the album is It's a Feeling. Written by Steve Porcaro, who also wrote Human Nature for Michael Jackson. This song is a very dark but cool composition that helps prop up one of the best albums of the 80s. One that notched Grammys for Record of the Year, Producer of the Year, and Album of the Year. It won 6 Grammys in all in 1983. And then the next year, the band's fingerprints, of course, were all over the record-breaking 8-time Grammy winner Thriller as they played on most of Michael Jackson's #1 all-time global bestseller. And they may have contributed even more than anyone will ever know or talk about, including Lukather's guitar parts on Beat It, outside of the incredible Eddie Van Halen solo. I mean, the fact that Toto is not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they ought to be ashamed of themselves. Not only is Toto one of the greatest bands of all time, but its members have played on, it's estimated, over 5,000 albums that in excess have sold over 500 million copies. It's incredible. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it's a joke without Toto in it. It's just the truth. Up next, 2 founding members of Toto talk about this. Guitarist, writer, vocalist Steve Lukather, Luke, and keyboardist, singer, and writer David Paich. They tell us the story of these exceptional secondary hits and how Lukather almost didn't get the Thriller gig because he kept hanging up on Michael Jackson when he called him up to play on the record. He thought it was a crank call. He thought his buddies were playing a joke on him. Now, as we go into this interview, I do want to thank our sponsor, Zenio Eyewear. To me, the tried and true test for any kind of product is time. I've been wearing Zennies for almost 2 years now, and I'm definitely an evangelist for this brand. They are quality frames for a price point that is unbelievable. And the extra features I've added, like blue blocks, have made my constant headaches go away, from staring at screens all the time. Make sure to go design your own pair at Zenni.com. And just to let you know, the best way to help us keep this a daily channel is your support on Patreon. You get more content, and it would really help us out a lot. The link is below.
We always verbally talked about because I think I've been working with the Jacksons doing the Victory album.
And I played on the song, so that was the irony. We were everywhere.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah, it was me and Jeff. Jeff played drums, I played all the guitars and played bass.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you played bass on Beat It. A lot of people forget about that. They know about the guitar.
I played everything except for the solo. Eddie did.
The rhythm guitar parts, to me, are the most memorable, the ones that he did.
Oh, yeah.
They did a couple of versions of the song, and then when Eddie cut the tape, we had to do it again. So there's some guys claiming they played on it, but it was really, at the end of the day, it was me, Jeff, and Michael. And I think Steve programmed the
synths.
The program.
Oh, really? The synth clavier? That's the opening synth clavier.
There are claims, other people claim they played on it, but it really just sounds like me. So.
Well, if you look at the record, man, the liner notes, it always got you guys down.
Quincy was great, man. I think he thanked everybody's wives and stuff on it. But we spent a lot of time in the studio between 1980 and 1984 with Quincy. We did a lot of stuff for him. I mean, all the records he did, we were involved in, whether it was his solo records or Michael's records or Herbie Hancock, Patty Austin, James Ingram, that whole chain of events.
And man, what a producer, man, one of the greats.
We saw him in Montreux this year. He introduced us at the Montreux Jazz Festival. We spent the night before, we were hanging out with him all night.
It was full circle, for sure. A lot of memories.
It's bizarre how the passage of time has gone. You're talking about the Beatles starting from 1962 to 70. Well, we're going like almost 40 years old, this band. I mean, 43 if you count high school. 45 if you count high school with jazz.
Yeah.
That's a terrifying length of time to still be sitting here doing this. It's a trip.
40-year marriage, man.
Yeah, it's lasted longer than
45 our wives.
Several of my marriages.
That's longer than my 31-year-old marriage to my wife.
That's what it is.
Hey.
31 years. Congratulations, man.
She just knows too much. That's why she won't leave. That's why he won't leave. We used to be, man, back in the old days, we'd be hanging out somewhere and the phone would ring. Before cell phones and all that stuff, it'd be like, there would be like somebody like that, like Quincy's officer. Where are you? Can you get down here? Yeah. Can you get down here in an hour?
Yeah.
They'd find us. I don't know, of course, we could be in any recording studio.
They'd have to trace us through our secretaries and management.
Somebody would find us, and then we'd be like, we'd get a call like that. How did you find me here?
Yeah. Nobody knows I'm here. Yeah.
Michael, you hung up on Michael a couple times.
Right? I did. When he first called me to play on the Thriller record, I thought it was a joke. He called me at 8 o'clock in the morning in 1982. I mean, come on, in 1982, I think I just went to bed. And I kept hanging up on him because hi, this is Michael. I'm like, off.
Yeah.
I'm like, and like 3 or 4 times, and then one time I got him on, I started grilling. Oh yeah, if you're Michael Jackson, you must know blah, blah, blah. And he kept me on the phone for like 20 minutes. And I still said, off. Come on, I gotta go to sleep, man. You wouldn't call me anyway. Quincy's office would call me. He was kind of giggly, I hung up the phone, and 3 hours later, I get a call from Quincy's office. He goes, "That was really Michael. You should call him back." So I had to call him back. Go, hey man, it's like, and he answered the phone. I got the bat phone or whatever it was, and this is like I said, way before cell phones and stuff. I called him at the Encino house or whatever.
Wow.
And he answered the phone. I said, "Hey man, I'm really sorry." He goes, "Oh, it happens all the time. It's okay."
Yeah.
It's like other people have hung up on us because it's like got the voice and you're like, 8 o'clock in the morning. Are you kidding me?
I wish you would have said, "This isn't really Steve Lukather," and hung up on you, something like that.
Well, yeah, things that you could have said.
I won't hold you back. Let's talk about that for a
Great
second
song.
because
Oh, thanks.
here you are, one of the great rock guitarists, but you're a great ballad writer, man.
I've always been a sucker for that stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
I loved Elton. I just love a good melody. Matter of fact, I wrote that song when we were doing the Turnback record. I was sitting out, waiting for things to happen. And, you'd sneak out in the studio and there'd be a grand piano and it'd be dark and nobody was there. And you could mess around, you know what I mean? Try to do something constructive while busy work was going on.
Waiting for me.
Well, there was waiting for Dave, but there was also a lot of times where they'd have to do technical stuff, and we'd
Yeah.
just sit around, and you'd get that moment by yourself out there with this really great grand piano in an empty room. It's an empty recording studio. It was great. So I started dicking around with it, and once again, we were making the Toto IV record, and I thought, oh, this is going to be too ballady. I don't think the guys are going to like this. And I played it. I was playing it around, and somebody said, Dave, I think, said, that's really good. You should cut that song. So I kind of was once again waiting for Dave at Sunset Sound, and I started playing the piano thing. Jeff started digging and sitting around playing with me, and I wrote the solo section. I said, I don't have a bridge for this thing. And I wrote the solo section right away. Dave walked in, and Jeff goes, let Paich play this. So the two of them cut the song, and then we overdubbed everything to it. And then, they said, well, let's go to London and do the strings with the London Symphony Orchestra.
Oh, yeah.
Brought in James Newton Howard and your dad, and you did an amazing arrangement for this thing that made it epic. It was really, for me,
Really
we're
a pocket
going for the
symphony,
Elton
man.
John thing,
Yeah.
Man Across the Water, Yellow Brick Road thing, because we're huge Elton fans.
I got to say a couple things about this song in retrospect. I want to give him a couple compliments here, but it's funny because what's great about the process on that song was there was no demos made and stuff. I walked in and everyone was crowded around the piano, and he was sitting at the piano playing. So I remember, and Jeff goes, "You got to hear this song that he played and everything like that," and he played the whole thing from top to bottom.
Realize just how much you care.
Now, I make records to me. The songs I've made are like the lines and stuff to me are really good records. But they're not great songs if you take the songs. This guy's a great songwriter. To me. He's the songwriter in total. Because you can take him, you can strip all this stuff down and hear these melodies like I'll Be Over You. Won't Hold You Back. And one of my goals is to write something that stands alone like that. My stuff needs its flaw, needs its production.
Did you have a mini stroke or something like that?
Why was I not maybe? No, I think about these things. I'm being very honest when it comes to, because I read an article about Mick Jagger, what's the difference between a great record and a great song. It's like Beast of Burden. It's a record and everything. But you take something like Wild Horses as a song, because it's got great melody and it has all this. I think this guy's a great songwriter.
There's no question.
Won't Hold You Back is truly one of the great songs that's come out of Toto.
One of the great songs
I think it's going to be a classic. It's going to go on for a while.
Like I said, a pocket symphony, kind of a kickback to those days of like what Brian Wilson, some of those guys were doing with the pocket symphony. Where you had.
It was a big production. I have to say that the record itself transformed this simple little piano song into more of an epic piece. So I got to give that to the guys. Everybody brought it. We had Timothy B. Schmidt come and sing on it. And he ended up going on the road with us for a couple of years after the Toto IV tour because the Eagles broke up. And he was like, I don't have anything to do. I go, well, come on the road with us. We did some horrible things to Timothy.
The practical jokes.
He's like, that was a really naughty period of time for us. And we had a lot of fun. It was a really great time.
You're vocal on that, man.
No, Dave helped me get that out of me. I was really terribly insecure about all that. Dave always got
just helped him find the last.
He got great vocals out of all of us. Really.
Before the second chorus, they call it the money note. That high note right there. Go up for that. He had it all. He had it. There. It was all there.
And my wife told me, she's a huge Toto fan with me. She's like, you better freaking ask about I Won't Hold You Back.
It was just one of those things you have in the back pocket. I didn't think anybody would like the song. Yeah. Just like he didn't think anybody would like Africa. Sometimes we got to stop editing ourselves.
Yeah.
when you have a ballad, it forces you to, when something's taking so much time to get from here to here, it makes you listen to the words, listen to the melody.
Yeah.
It has to be good melody and good words to withstand. Quincy Jones, another thing when we came to picking singles, it's like Rosanna had been out, Rosanna done good. And we asked Quincy, what's the next single? And he says, well, you guys have a ballad on there because Rosanna. And he heard Won't Hold You Back, and he said, there's your next single right there.
Yeah.
So we released that, and,
Tell me about the solo on that.
I was sort of on the spot. We were sitting in the studio, and he was like, "Yeah, I like the song. It needs a bridge." So the hands fell.
Yeah.
It was like a gift from God, you know. And I just followed all the way down and said, "Well, that works perfectly. Let's just insert that." And all I did was write the melody. I just played the melody on the guitar. It's a very simple, soaring melody, but it just worked.
Real classical.
Great tone.
Sometimes you don't have to play that much to say a lot.
Yeah.
For sure.
Other times you play too much and you say nothing. I've been on both sides of that fence.
And this came out right at that time where you had these big blockbuster albums. And the 80s were the kind of perfect time for those huge albums, from Michael Jackson, Thriller, Toto IV, to Springsteen, Born in the USA.
And The Wall, we had all the stuff.
Police, Synchronicity, all those big
we
albums.
listened to all, those are all the records that we were listening to for inspiration. Steely Dan, obviously. You you look at Asia and Royal Scam and all those kind of records, and at that period of time, they were huge.
Big sellers, you know what I mean? Boston was coming out, The Foreigner came out. There was a lot of competition up there when we were first trying to put our band together.
I mean, that was you had to be competitive with all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then we were also working on a lot of the records that were our competition.
Yeah.
Competing against ourselves.
You were your own competition, but Make Believe, I want to ask you about that song, because that's kind of a little ditty that was a hit, and that
was the one everybody thought was going to be the big one.
You know what I mean?
You know what I mean? And ironically, it did okay, but it wasn't a blockbuster. Like, I think we released that 4th.
That was an attempt to write a bookend to hold the line, same kind of groove.
Although it's a great song. It's like
it shows you.
That bridge is like, the way that modulates is really, that's classic Paich.
great harmonies.
Never play the obvious,
Yeah.
It's a Feeling is another
Steve Porcaro.
Another great track from
Steve always had these really wacky kind of Steve Porcaro songs. I can't describe it any other way. That he has a very unique writing style. To me. Very his phrasing is very quirky and very original. And it's always been that way. He's always had something a little different, off center from everybody else. Yeah, if you look at each component of the band members, what everybody brought to it, he was always the guy doing something a little bit weirder and strange, but still very melodic and accessible, Yeah. And he, like I said, there's so much talent in that guy.
Great live song too. You guys have been playing that last couple of
tours.
Yeah, we did. It's a Feeling more than any song. Yeah, of course I love Rosanna and Africa and Make Believe because they're such great pop songs. But as far as like a feel song that resonated with me.
I mean, dig it, and I got to have the the London Symphony Orchestra doing strings on my quirky little tune, arranged by James Newton Howard.
I know James Newton Howard.
That added this layer of I don't know what the word is, but beauty to what we were doing. You know what I mean? Especially having James' sensibility and it being the LSO and Abbey Road.
How did that song come together for you?
I just was learning these modular synthesizers and these digital sequencers, and was in way over my head. And Reggie Fisher, this friend of my brother Mike's, that we used to do some recording with. He had a home studio, had a cool 24 track, and he let me set up all this stuff in his room. And I pretty much 24 hours had the run of the place just to try to learn that stuff. But he also had a piano in his other room, and I just kind of came up with this weird, it was just so weird. It felt real dark right from the beginning. It just felt right to sing, "It's a feeling, I don't belong here."
I don't belong here.
One thing that's always bothered me, and it doesn't seem to have bothered you, but I repeat the same verse. That's supposed to be a second verse. I never could come up with it. As a rough thing, I sang the first verse over again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Pretty much verbatim, with every intention of replacing it. You know what I mean? As soon as I wrote the second verse, and I never wrote the second verse. So it's kind of an unfinished song to me. You know what I mean? And here it is on an album of the year,
I know. Leave us a comment about Toto IV and these amazing songs, Make Believe, I Won't Hold You Back, and It's a Feeling. What do you think of their contributions to Michael Jackson Thriller? What are your memories of these songs on this album? Make sure to tell us what you think we should call this show. Don't forget to subscribe as well. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends. Talk to you soon.